Monica Lewinsky plays the blame game, Renee Zellweger's new face, and an awkward interview with Colorado Senator Mark Udall. You have to see it. All these stories and more coming up on The Rundown.
All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Ready, camera, one.
Talent.
Ready, camera,
Full
two.
record.
3, 2, 1.
Record.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is The Rundown, where we take a look at some of the big stories making headlines. I'm your host, John Phillips. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is PJTV contributor Michelle Fields. And here in studio in the City of Angels, we're joined by stand-up comic Stephen Gruser. Now it's time to go to the top of the rundown. And we're starting east to west today, so Michelle, you're up first.
At the top of my rundown, Monica Lewinsky is back in the public eye after she spoke at an event for Forbes magazine. The 41-year-old spoke at the Forbes magazine 30 Under 30 Summit in New York. She was there to talk about the internet and how it ruined her life. She specifically blamed the Drudge Report and not her actions with President Clinton. Take a listen.
My name is Monica Lewinsky. Though I have often been advised to change it, or asked why on earth I haven't. But there we are. I haven't. I am still Monica Lewinsky. 16 years ago, fresh out of college, a 22-year-old intern in the White House, and more than averagely romantic, I fell in love with my boss. In a 22-year-old sort of way. It happens. But my boss was the President of the United States. Thanks to the internet and a website that at the time was scarcely known outside of Washington, D.C., but a website most of us know today called the Drudge Report, within 24 hours, I became a public figure. Not just in the United States, but around the entire globe. As far as major news stories were concerned, this was the very first time that the traditional media was usurped by the internet.
You know, it's interesting that she sort of has just come out right now. I mean, she's been in hiding for years and years, and now all of a sudden she's out and about talking about her story. Why do you think that is, Cruiser? Why do you think she chose this year to come out and talk about her story?
At first blush, you would think that it had to do with maybe embarrassing the Clintons and Hillary Clinton for a potential run, but that the fact that she hasn't blamed them for anything yet, I think it's sort of another preemptive strike from the Clinton media machine to get this out of the way before it becomes an embarrassment and comes up on the campaign trail. If she's out there all the time not blaming Bill, not blaming Hillary, not blaming anybody else, but blaming, you know, with wink, wink, nudge, nudge, the vast right-wing conspiracy and Drudge Report right now, I think, again, this might, there's no end to how conspiratorial I believe the Clintons are, and I think this is part of the Clinton media machine getting her out there in advance.
I think she's angling for a job on VH1. IF the 90s.
Oh, God. He went there.
I'll tell you one thing where I think she's telling the truth, and I think she's wholeheartedly correct. She said that this was the first real story, this was the first real scandal,
yes,
where the internet usurped the mainstream media. And the fact of the matter is that Howard Isikoff and Newsweek had this story before Drudge. And they decided that they were going to bury it because politically they didn't want to damage a president who they ideologically agreed with.
Yep.
And in years past, as happened with Kennedy, as happened with any number of Democrats in the Congress and governors and senators and mayors, they were protecting their own. And they tried to protect their own here. Mm-hmm. And Matt Drudge said, wait a minute, we're living in a new era where you can't do that. Howard Isikoff and the Newsweek magazine may bury the story, but I'm not. And he changed the world.
Yeah, and it's the thing about her and the internet right now is, well, it's convenient to say the internet ruined her because she was the first one. But the internet wasn't that big yet. I mean, she wasn't being talked about on social media all the time. She wasn't being. It was the way the Clintons went out and damaged her after that. You know, there wasn't this huge presence where it was buzz, buzz, buzz all day long, like on Facebook and posts about Monica Lewinsky and BuzzFeed, the top 20 things she did on the carpet, you know, that kind of stuff. So she can pretend all she wants. They may have broken the story, but it was still the Clintons that went out there and tried to destroy her and did destroy her effectively, and obviously didn't pay for any public speaking lessons.
All right, Cruiser, what do you have for us?
Top of my rundown, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have reached an agreement to loosen lending standards. This will help make mortgages more affordable and easier to get for those with lackluster credit. This comes after criticism that banks clamp down too much on loan criteria to avoid any legal liability on mortgages that may go bad in the future. Now, stop me if you've seen this movie before, John, but here we go again with the very same thing that led to the crisis back in the early part of the 21st century. It was the same exact thing. Now, they tried to pin it all on the private sector, but it really started back with the Community Reinvestment Act with Carter that then Clinton put on steroids, where the government, through its pseudo agencies like Fannie and Freddie, were, you know, leaning on lenders to loosen up and give bad loans to people. And then when it blew up in their faces, you had Barney Frank, who was literally in bed with the people at, well, I can't remember who was Fannie or Freddie, but literally in bed with someone there, then coming out and excoriating the private industry and the lenders for having put people in these precarious positions. So then we bail them out, and barely, this is just a few years later. This isn't something that happened 20 years later. Now here we're at it again. How do they justify this?
Well, liberals in the housing market are like the three little bears. Everything's too hot, Goldilocks. Everything's too hot or everything's too cold.
Yeah.
Where they just give money to anyone and everyone who wants it. You could lie on the forms. Nobody checks to see if you're telling the truth. And then, oh boy, when you get foreclosed on, it's a big surprise. And then with Dodd-Frank, they changed it to where they tightened the bank so much, nobody could get money, including people who should get loans, who are low-risk home buyers. And for a while, they couldn't get any money. What's wrong with putting 10% down and having a good credit score and having a decent income? I just don't understand how that is just so horrible. They either do it to where you get a 3% down or 105% loan or something like that, or nobody gets any money unless you can pay for the whole thing in cash. I don't get it. It's not that hard.
Or worse yet, you get somebody in a precarious situation, then you give them a balloon payment to exacerbate the problem too. You get them into a loan that they can barely afford here, and then a few years down the road, boom, boom, it's all over. Michelle, do you think that the government just purposely plays upon, one, the short attention span of the public right now, and liberals especially, they just like to set people up to fail so that the government can bail them out and be their big daddy for them and keep the Democrats in power forever?
Well, that's what it seems like. I mean, they're going and making the exact same mistakes that we just did. This is exactly what we went through. Why go and give these people loans that for homes that they cannot afford? If they don't have good credit, they don't have the money, well, then they shouldn't own a home. They shouldn't be buying a home. I mean, it's simple as that. Why go through what we just went through?
I can't finance a bike at the Sports Authority right now with my credit the way it emerged from that financial crisis right now. But in 6 months, evidently, I'll be able to go buy a house in Bel Air. So
there you go.
I'll invite you guys over.
Movie stars. Moving on to the top of my rundown, Colorado Senator Mark Udall gives one of the most awkward interviews ever. The Democrat appeared on Denver's ABC 7 News over the weekend. He answered a series of 10 questions, but he became stumped when asked about his favorite books. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Name 3 of the most influential books in your life and the last song you listened to.
Oh, wow.
I know, that's the toughest.
So the 3 most influential books in my life: Profiles in Courage, let me think. We can play this over, right? Let me retape this.
Let's go back to that. What about music? What's the last song you listened to?
I'm brain dead today.
All right, so back to the books. Profiles in Courage.
Yeah, let me catch my thought here. So, In the Kingdom of Ice, Profiles in Courage, and A Centennial, Michener's great book about Colorado.
Yeah.
I love Sean Colvin's song about avalanches. because it's appropriate to Colorado.
Okay, good enough.
Such a liar. He's trying to find songs and books that appeal to Colorado because he didn't want to say the Kama Sutra or whatever his favorite book is. Just be honest. They ask you a question, just tell them whatever's on your mind.
If this guy survives this campaign and gets reelected, he and Claire McCaskill should get tramp stamps that say luckiest politicians alive. Because there is no reason that this guy should win this election. And it's stunning to me because I grew up in Arizona when his father was dominating there. And Mo Udall was one of the most eloquent, easy, free speakers, great guy, always quick with a joke and everything, and that this is his progeny is stunning to me. He goes, up and up, let me catch my thought. You had no thought there to catch, Mark. There wasn't a thought. You were empty.
This is why we don't have a monarchy. Michelle, did you feel sorry for the guy as he was trying to answer the question, or are you just scratching your head thinking, how did he get in the U.S. Senate?
You know, I would feel bad if I thought, you know, he was nervous, but that wasn't it. What he was doing was trying to think of books and songs that would appeal to constituents rather than just saying what his favorite books are, the last song he listened to. It was like, it wasn't good enough. He needed to be a typical politician and tailor his answer to voters. But, you know, voters don't like that. They don't like someone who's not being genuine. And you can tell in that interview that he's not being genuine.
And go back and look at the beginning of this, you viewers out there right now. As he's being asked the question, his lips are going. He looks like a fish in an aquarium when he's being asked the question at first. He keeps going. And I don't know if that means he's trying to come up with an answer in his head or if he always walks around looking like a fish in an aquarium.
Well, just think about what happened when Sarah Palin was asked, what did you read?
Yeah, she couldn't get a magazine out right away and she was branded for life.
Yeah, but they never shut up about it.
Yeah. Well, we still hear about it.
Yeah.
That and the Russia thing that she never said. And this guy, oh my God, I hope they're not letting him around the electrical outlets. You can tell the first thing he does is stick his tongue in it.
All right, now it's time to get to your sweet spot.
Sweet spot.
Cruiser, do that again.
Okay.
All right, Michelle, you're up first.
In the sweet spot is actress Renee Zellweger's face. The 45-year-old's face looks much, much different than what we're used to seeing. This is what Renee's face looked like a few years ago. Flash forward to today, and this is the new Renee Zellweger. Look at that. It doesn't even look the same. Cameras were rolling as she attended Elle's 21st Annual Women in Hollywood Awards Monday night in Los Angeles, and she is now barely recognizable. According to some plastic surgeons, the actress has had some work done. They say her line-free forehead would be from the use of Botox, and doctors said the rest of her face was puffy as well. She may have had an upper eye lift and fillers. In past interviews, the actress has said she hasn't had any work done, and she's saying now that she still has not had any work done, but she's happy that people think her face looks different. Cruiser, you said in the beginning before the show that you had a theory as to what has happened to her face. What is that theory?
I was actually looking at the pictures a lot this morning, and if the Botox thing I can go with, but that's not plastic surgery. That's just, you know, mimicking paralysis. That's what Botox is. It looks like she has lost a lot of weight in her face, and then, you know, as you get older, that isn't always as flattering sometimes, especially when you're someone like me who's had a chubby face. I mean, her cheekbones are still there.
When you lose weight, you don't get a whole new face. I mean, she got a whole new face.
I can't see, unless they suck the fat out of her cheeks, like there's some squirrelectomy you can do there. I don't understand what, but it doesn't look like she's had it all pulled up like so many people do.
I have a theory.
Yes?
I think she testified against the mob.
Okay. I don't know what that means either, Michelle.
When you go in witness protection,
they do the whole thing. Yeah, they do that in movies all the time.
Yeah, plastic surgery.
I almost got run over by a Witsec truck the other day, by the way, while I was out running. Thanks, federal government.
All right, my sweet spot, I'm sticking on the topic of appearances. A virtual autopsy on King Tut has been completed. And get this, the legendary pharaoh was pretty ugly.
Oh my God, it's Renee Zellweger.
2,000 scans were carried out on King Tut. He had girlish hips, a club foot, and buck teeth. Virtual autopsy also found his parents were brother and sister. That'll do it. His family history may have led to his premature death in his late teens. Scientists believe he died of inherited illnesses and not from a chariot crash, which was rumored. They say his club foot would have made chariot racing particularly difficult to do. Go ahead, Mr. Comedian. Take your shot at the piñata here.
Glad somebody spent money on that. This is like, we can't talk about current politicians, but this guy from 3,000 years ago, total clubfoot.
Look at that figure. Put that picture back up for Michelle for a second there. Look at King Tut, Michelle.
Sexy time.
I wouldn't date him.
Big man diaper.
It looks like Baby Huey there. Baby New Year. All right, Cruiser, what do you have for us?
In the sweet spot, Starbucks does an about-face on its tattoo policy for its employees. The coffee giant released a letter to its employees this week. It says they will now be able to openly display their ink as long as it's tasteful and does not appear on a worker's face or throat. This resulted after an employee started a petition to change the company's policy on tattoos. Employees must still, however, have just 2 earrings in each ear and can't dye their hair in any unnatural colors. Now, I was talking about this to my sister the other day before I even saw this story. We're both from Tucson. We've been back there a lot recently, and Tucson has a lot of good old school coffee houses, the kind of like the big industrial ceilings, the huge couches everywhere. And I told her I judge all coffee houses by the strength of the coffee, the deliciousness of the pastries, and the number of tattoos on the hippie people working there, okay? Which has always been the thing with Starbucks. I love the Starbucks coffee, but they don't look like coffee house people. If I go in and there's the, the septum piercing and the tats everywhere, that's the only time I like to see tats. When I walk into a coffee house, I know it's good coffee.
My best friend's father, Dr. Jim Huckabee, had the best line on tattoos I've ever heard before in my entire life.
What?
He said, tattoos are a permanent reminder of a temporary feeling.
Yes, it's true. I'm glad I've talked my kid out of them thus far. Michelle, you hiding any ink there?
No ink. But I don't mind if someone serves me coffee with tattoos. I actually agree with you, Cruiser. I like going into like a little hole-in-the-wall coffee shop and having some hippie with lots of tattoos serve me coffee. I feel like that's exactly.
What else are you going to do with a women's studies degree?
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. What do you think about Starbucks allowing employees to show their tats? What about the new Renee Zellweger? Be sure to leave your comments in the comment section below. I'm John Phillips for Stephen Cruiser, joining me here in Los Angeles, and Michelle Fields in Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching The Rundown.